See, we all have a story, the story of our lives, the story of the past, the story of everything that has happened to us, the story that we take on from our communities, the story that we take on from our parents, the stories that we've told ourselves over and over and over again about ourselves, about what's possible for us, the stories we tell ourselves about the future, and what's going to happen and what's not going to happen. Our life is formulated by the stories that we tell ourselves. And just like everybody else, I have a story. I have a perspective. I have a way that I viewed my life. I had a story that I told myself over and over and over again for many, many years. And I have a new story. I have a new perspective. I have a new understanding. Because the stories that we tell ourselves are exactly that. They're stories. They're a version of the truth. They're a version of reality. They are a version of what happened. And what I have learned to do over the past number of years is to go back and examine my story, to look at my story with fresh perspective, with new understandings. And for me, there's a phrase, don't let the past dictate your future. And for a lot of us, we are going towards our future while our eyes are fixed on the past. We're operating our life fixated by the stories that we've told ourselves. And my skill is in helping people unravel their stories, to see their stories in a new light and begin to tell a new story. To begin to experience life unfiltered. And for many years, I remember feeling like I wasn't good enough. For many years, I lived a life of comparison. For many years, I just stopped myself from excelling and doing well because I always thought that other people were better than me. I always thought that I wasn't quite good enough. When I was young, say 3 years old, I have a memory. I have a memory of my mother sitting in a corner, crying and squealing, while me and my brother sat on a sofa in a living room, watching my dad throw things at my mother and hurl abuse at my mother. It was terrifying. And my older brother at the time, he would have been 4. He began to cry. He began to scream. And my dad grabbed him and threw him in the corner with my mum. And he turned around to me and he said, "Big boys don't cry. Big boys don't cry." And I remember as I look back that in that moment, I knew to keep my mouth shut. I knew that if I was to open my mouth, or if I was to cry, if I was to show any emotion, that it would mean trouble. So I learned to keep quiet. I learned that if you hide yourself, you don't get into trouble. You're safe. And in that one moment, I made a decision. I made a decision that it's more safe to play small and to hide and to not talk. And that strategy helped me keep safe in that situation as a small boy. It protected me from the real violence that was going on in that house, in our house at that time. But as a grown man, that strategy didn't serve me and doesn't serve me. And to keep quiet and to play small and to not share and speak my voice and speak my truth caused me to not take opportunities, caused me to be afraid to stand up for what I believe to be right in circumstances in work. It caused me actually to not feel whole, to feel like I was lacking, to feel like I wasn't enough, to feel like what I had to say and offer and give to the world wasn't valued. And from that one moment, from that one decision, it I played in work life, it I played in relationships. I was afraid of violence. If I spoke out, there would be violence. And fast forward many, many years from being a 3-year-old boy, I was a 36-year-old man. And I had left my job as a youth worker. And I was setting up a coaching business, 6 Degrees Coaching. And 6 Degrees Coaching, I had this ambition to work with leaders within the youth work sector, to help leaders lead their teams more strongly, to help leaders create a coaching culture within their teams, so ultimately that youth workers could become the best versions of themselves so that they can help and really serve the young people that were in their care. And I set out creating this. I created a video. I went to a big youth conference. I had flyers ready. I had I had a website, and I was staying up to all sorts of hours creating things and putting things out there and doing all the things that I thought I had to do in order to create momentum to get a message out there. But on looking back, it was always coming from a place of lack. It was coming from a place of deep fear and uncertainty about myself. and questioning what I had to offer and what I had to give, and was it good enough, and could I actually help people? And I was consumed and stuck. So the business, I never did the things that I needed to do to create business. I never picked up the phone and asked people, is this a service that you would invest in? Is this something that would be of value to you? I never used my contacts wider than my old work contacts. And yes, I did create a little bit of momentum, and I got some work, and I was doing workshops. But there was something within me that knew that there was a bigger game to play. And there was a time where Anita and I were sitting and we were looking at the finances. And Anita asked me what work there was to come in. And I looked her in the eyes and said, there's nothing. There's no work coming in. And I could tell by the look on her face that just struck up fear. And she said to me, then now's the time. Now's the time. You need to go and get yourself a job. We can't go on without an income coming in. You need to go and get yourself a job. And I said to her, listen, I can make this work. I'll make this work. And she had said her piece, and she got up and left. And all I can say is that in that moment, I broke down. I broke down out of fear, wondering where I was going to get money from, how we're going to support the family, how am I going to make this thing work? And there was a moment of calmness and a moment of stillness, and I realized that the only way that the business was going to work is if I was working. The only way that the business would succeed is if I was succeeding on the inside. Put another way, the only reason the business was failing was because of me. Not because of the idea, not because of people, the youth work sector had no money to buy what I was offering, but it was because of me, because of my beliefs about what was possible for me, what was possible for me as a business person. I didn't even see myself as a business person. In fact, I believed that I couldn't have a successful business. At an unconscious level, that's what I believed. So I knew work had to be done. So I reached out, and I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, then I want to work with somebody who is at the top of their game. And I ended up connecting with a guy called Stevie J. And Stevie J is an absolutely fantastic guy. A massive heart, a heart of gold, a heart for serving and helping people. And I reached out to him, and he asked me on the phone, he said, well, what is it that you would love to do? I said, well, I want to be a coach. I want to help people. And he said, oh, okay, so what is it you're currently doing? Like, what would you love to create in the coaching world? And I told him about my idea. And at that particular time, he was partnering with a few other people to launch a program called Super U. And Super U was a coaching program that was going into schools and providing motivational talks and seminars and workshops to really inspire young people to step into their purpose and to step into their dreams. So he heard something that I was sharing and offering, and he heard something, a passion within my voice for that. And he said to me, listen, I'm going to be talking in Tokyo on Friday. but I want you to go on Friday and I want you to meet my team. And Team Super U were putting on a talk somewhere in Armagh. And I went down and I met a guy called Kevin Young and a guy called James. And I said, Stevie sent me down to meet you guys and to spend some time chatting to me. And that was it. The event was great. And I went away kind of bewildered and confused. But cut a long story short, Stevie ended up offering me a place on the Stevie J team. And we worked with business people and entrepreneurs to help them release their energy, to feel more freedom in their life, to get more clarity in their life. And we worked in terms of their health and their relationship, their well-being and their business. And part of my role on the team was to coach people, but also to partake in the training. Stevie was training us as a team. And Stevie would say, at times it was very challenging for him because Stevie is a fast action taker. He's a visionary. He gets things done quickly. And his pace of life and his pace of business is intuitive, but it's also quick and fast. And my background wasn't in business. My background was in the community voluntary sector, which has a different feel to it and a different pace, I guess, to it. But also, I had some fears and apprehensions around calling people, around selling. I didn't know how to have those conversations. And I would avoid putting myself in those positions. You also noticed that when I was away on retreats, that I would be quieter than the rest of the team. I'd be more reflective. And I wouldn't offer my opinion freely. But when I was asked to say something and when I did speak, that what I spoke about and what came out of my mouth had depth, had meaning, and I was able to help people shift perspectives and help people begin to change through my stories and through what I was sharing. So he knew that there was so much potential within me, and he saw that, and he also knew that there was something blocking that. And he brought me into his room one day, and he sat me down, and he showed me a video that I had up online of an interview that I was doing with a group of people. And he said, "What do you see in yourself?" And I told him, "Well, I see, somebody on the outside who, seems to be knowledgeable, maybe trying too hard, but I know on the inside that I'm crumbling and I'm feeling like I don't deserve to be there." And he took me on a little bit of a journey, a little bit of an exercise examining where this feeling was coming from. And to cut a long story short, we got onto the topic of my father. And we got onto the topic of coming from a broken home and how that, the impact that has had on me. And he simply said to me, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" I said, "What do you mean? What am I going to do about it? I forgave my dad when I was 17, and that's it. I've forgiven him. I don't want to do anything more about it." And Stevie said to me, "Well, you've just told me that these are the things that are stopping you and holding you back. So if you want to move forward, like you say that you want to do, then you got to do something about it. So what do you want to do about it?" And just so happens that months prior to me being around Stevie and working with Stevie, that I had a message from a cousin. And I knew this. I knew I had a message from from my cousin on my computer, but I didn't want to tell Stevie that because I started feeling really uncomfortable, and I started feeling like afraid. Why I don't want, like, I don't want to. I don't want to face these things. And Stevie said, "Well, hypothetically, if you were to change things, what would you do?" And I said, "Well, I would meet my dad." He says, "Well, go and do that then." And I said, "I can't meet my dad." And he simply said this. He just said, "Just say yes, Finty. Just say yes." And I sat with the uncomfortable feelings. And I said yes. And as I said yes, I also plucked up the courage to go and grab my laptop and to reach out to my cousin who I had never met or never seen before in my life, and to say, "Hello, thank you for the message, and I would love to connect with my dad." And I did. I was so nervous. I got on the plane, and all I could think about was, what am I doing? What on God's good earth am I doing? Because when I was 17, I'd made a decision to forgive him because I didn't want to carry any of the pain anymore. Because I knew that without forgiving my father, that I would always carry the pain and the resentment and the hatred. And I knew that that was poison for me. I knew that there was joy and happiness and contentment and fulfillment to be experienced in life, and I wanted to feel those things. So as a 17-year-old, I made a decision to forgive my dad for the torture that he put my mum through, for the hurt that he put my mum through, for the pain that he caused the family. And fast forwarding to this time, sitting on a plane going over, I guess I was excited and nervous. I'd never experienced those feelings before. And I don't know what it was. As soon as the plane landed, something came over me. I was like a completely different person. I was on a mission. I was on a mission to see my father. And the plane landed, and I grabbed my bags, and I thought, right, I need to get 200 miles down the road. The bus isn't going to cut it. I'm going to rent a car. I'm usually quite careful with money, but I really didn't care. Went straight up. I queued up, and I spoke to the man. I looked the man straight in the eyes, and I said, "I'm going to meet my father today. I haven't seen him in 33 years, and I need the best car for the cheapest price ever." And he looked at me and he said, "No problem." And that just wasn't like me to behave like that and to put myself out on a limb like that. And that was life giving me an opportunity to step out of the old story, to step out of the old Vinty, to step out of the old conditioning, because I had a mission. I had something that was so important to me that was going to change the trajectory of my life, that it was worth stepping out and doing something different for. So I got this car, and I drove the 150, the 200 miles. And the closer that I got, the more that my heart beat, the more fear that I felt, the more that I doubted, was this a good decision? And I drove to the street, and the sat nav brought me outside the house, number 10. And I panicked, and I thought everything inside of me was going, drive away, drive away, drive away. But there was this small part of me that said, stay and see it through. Stay and see it through. But I thought, I'm not ready. I'll get out of the car. So I got out of the car and I took a walk. And as I walked, memories were coming back to me. Memories when I was 3 years old at a corner shop, and I was picking chewing gum off the ground. And I went for a walk and I found a park that I remembered. And as I began to walk, I began to literally see myself walking in the footsteps of my mum, who probably would have been in her late 20s, maybe early 30s, with 4 kids and one on the way. And I imagined her walking up and down those streets. And I imagined what it would have been like for her going in and out of the shops. She would have had friends. I imagined what it would have been like to go and to know that she was going back to an abusive family, abusive husband. And it was a beautiful thing to be an adult and to think this is how my mum experienced her world. And I plucked up the courage to go back towards number 10. And as I was walking, I was coming up to the hire car, and I thought, just get in the hire car and drive away. But I just said yes to the next step. And every step that came, I just said yes to it. And that was the mantra in my head. Just say yes. Just say yes. And I said yes. 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 And then all of a sudden I was standing right outside number 10, knocking on the door. Dum, 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 dum. And a lady answered the door. And I said, you're not going to believe this, and you probably aren't going to hear this every day, but my name is Vincent Firth, and I'm here to see Roy. Is Roy in? And she said, no, there's no Roy that lives here. And I thought, well, she's having me on, she's pulling the wool over my eyes here, because weeks before I had actually sent a letter before going over, saying how I had forgiven him and all this kind of stuff, and I would love to see him. And I said, did you receive a letter? And she said, well, my husband, if he had received the letter, he would have sent it back. And I said, oh, so did you receive a letter then? And he says, yes, we received a letter. And I was like, right, okay. You see, it's just really important for me to be able to see Roy, and to be able to even if I could just say hello. And she was saying, he doesn't live here. He says, do you know of any Roy that lives about these places? And she says, sorry, I can't help you. And I said, right, okay, well, if you change your mind, then or if you get any more information, they'll be out in the car. And I turned and walked away. And I thought, do you know what? He's in there. He's in there. He just doesn't want to come out. He doesn't want to come out and face me. He doesn't want to come out and see me because he's ashamed. I know he's in there. You know, me with my NLP training and body language and being a specialist in body language, I was thinking, oh, I read her body language. She's lying. And I sat in the car and I thought, right, so what are we going to do? If he's not there, then where could he be? And there was a shop. There was a shop opposite. A pie shop of all the shops. My brother-in-law was with me and my sister. And my brother-in-law says, I'll go into the shop, I'll pretend I'm a courier, and I'll ask. And he went into the shop, had a little chat, came back and said, yep, he lives in number 14. And he said that and nearly vomited. Nearly vomited in my mouth. I was like, oh no, here we go again. And we drove up to number 14, parked opposite number 14. And again, it was like plucking up the courage. And I said, as soon as I'm ready, I'm just going to go. And I was ready, and I went straight up to number 14, knocked the door. Nobody was there. I was like, right, okay. I said, right, I'm going next door. Knocked on the door. And this young chap comes out, and I said, listen, I'm looking for Roy Firth. I'm his son, haven't seen him in 33 years. Does he live next door? And the guy said, yes, he does. And I was so overjoyed that we had actually found the house and that we've located where he is. And the guy said, listen, he's at work and he only works around the corner, so you might be able to go and catch him. And so we went on this big adventure. We got in the car, we drove around the corner. He's a bin man, and all the bin lorries were out. And we parked the car up again. And again, I asked myself, I was like, okay, what do I need to do? And the thought just happened, go and speak to the manager. So I went in and I spoke to the manager, and quite rightly so, the manager was very unsure. And I said to him, listen, I know you're going to be on, like, I know it's very strange for you, but I'm looking for Roy. Roy's my dad. I haven't seen him in 33 years. And he wouldn't give any information around what route he was on or what time he was coming back. And I said, listen, I understand there's policies and procedures and you want to protect, and you've never met me before, but please, could you do this? Could you take a photograph of me and my sister? And could you tell Roy when he comes back that his son and his daughter have been looking for him? And could you show him the photograph, please? And he did. He took the photograph. And off we went. And I guess at that stage we were losing a bit of hope. We got in the car and we went and we got something to eat, and it was quiet and there wasn't much talking, and adrenaline was still running high, and we were thinking, you know, what do we do here? Do we go back round to the house? Do we go round to his work again? What do we do? We decided, you know, okay, we'll go back round to the house, we'll leave a note. We'll leave a note in the door, which we did. And we got back in the car after leaving the note in the door, and I said, do you know what? I'm done. I think we just head home. I think we head up the road here, and and that's it. And my sister turned around to me and she says, Do you realise that I have never seen my father, and I have not come this far just to give up when we are so close? And it was like an epiphany in my head, in my mind, that so many times in my life I have been so close to something. So many times I've been close to doing something that I've really wanted to do, and just in the final moments of giving, that I've never really fully committed and followed through with something. And in that moment I made a new decision that no matter what I do is that I follow through, that I will see it through to the end, that I'll give it everything that I've got. So we did. We made a new decision, we made a new commitment, and we drove back round to my father's work. And we were sitting in the car, and the manager came out, and they jumped out of the car, and he just said, You've missed him. You've missed him. And I asked, Did you give him the picture? Did you tell him we were here? And he said, Yeah, I did. I said, What did he say? And he told me that my dad just looked at the photograph and cried. He looked at the photograph and he cried, and he said, That's my son, that's my daughter. And he rushed out to his car and he drove back round to his house. My brother-in-law shouted really quickly, Get in the car quick, get in the car quick. At this stage it was 3 o'clock. We had a flight to get on at 5 o'clock. So an hour and a half drive to do. So we had no time. We had no time to see him. But we'd made a decision. And I had made a decision that I was going to change my story. So we got in the car and we drove round. And it was like something out of the A-Team. I was driving around as quickly as I could and got outside the house, jumped out of the car, and it was surreal. Everything was in slow motion. And I got up to the door and I knocked on the door, and almost immediately the door opened, and there he was, standing in front of me with the biggest smile on his face. And I said, Roy, I'm Vincent, I'm your son. And I said, Can I give you a hug? And I gave him a big hug. And he was saying, I didn't expect to see him. We were standing on the front doorstep, and I said, Can we come in? And we went in, and it was the same house that we had grown up in. And it was the same room that I had that experience in as a young child. And I sat down as an adult, face to face. And I said to my father, I said, I forgive you, I've forgiven you. And we talked some, and he told us how difficult his life was. He told us how his father was abusive, was an alcoholic. He told us how he's always self-sabotaged. He told us how when we left, he had to make a decision whether to die or whether to live. And he chose to live. And he chose to go on a journey of bettering himself. And what's ironic is that all of that had to happen because it set my mother free and it set him free. That the pain that happened and that was created and that was caused created a ripple effect for people to be able to heal. The decision that my mum made to leave and get out was the bravest and strongest decision ever, because that allowed her to heal, and that allowed me to heal, and that allowed my father to heal. And it was only in visiting and seeing my father that I learned that he actually isn't a monster. Because we build up these images and pictures of people, don't we? We assume that people are always going to be the same. We're good at assuming the worst in people. And I always carried this picture and image that he was a drunk, angry, old man. And that's not who met me at that door. Who met me at that door was a man who carried so much pain. It was a man that carried so much shame. It was a man that had been broken as a child. And it's a man who allowed his story, that allowed the story of his past to become his future. And was also a man who had the courage to choose to live. He had the courage to choose to change and to choose to go on a journey of self-discovery and of renewal. Not the monster. Because we all have a story. And he had a story of his past. And now he has a story of his future. And I have a story of my future. See, our past doesn't have to dictate our future. In fact, it's a beautiful thing to be able to allow the lessons from our past to emerge. To be able to let go of the anger and the hatred and the shame that we carry. To forgive. To be able to forgive and allow freedom to rise up within our hearts. Because unforgiveness is a prison for ourselves. Unforgiveness is poison. Why choose to poison ourselves any longer? Why choose to cling to old versions and old stories that aren't the full truth anyway? Because as a child I didn't know. As a child I didn't know that my father was behaving and acting in ways that he only knew how to. Perspective, hindsight, looking at your story through fresh eyes to allow it to fall away and for the learning and for the lessons to show up. Because life is always for us. There is absolutely nothing that is going on in your life at the moment that isn't for you. Life is always calling us to become more and more and more and more aligned and authentic, to become the real versions of ourselves. And it'll keep giving us the lessons. It'll keep giving us the teachings until we take the lessons from them and integrate them. So your life is a gift. Your life is a moment of teaching. And it's up to us to allow ourselves to look past the past, our version of the past, to forgive, and to look forward to our future that is brighter and lighter because we've let go of the baggage.